actually have a love for racing. Being from the state of Indiana means that a love for motorsports of any kind is kinda in my blood. This has transferred to, or perhaps was even birthed from, my love of video games. Now I love me some good simcade racing and the occasional kart racer, but my favorite subgenre of racing games are futuristic anti-grav racers. That leads me to the game we are talking about today, BallisticNG. Taking clear inspiration from the old Wipeout games, both graphically and mechanically, BNG wants to harken back to the futuristic-loving subculture of ravers dancing to Prodigy in an abandoned warehouse, dropping acid and trying to decide whether or not they are drinking beer or if somebody just pissed in their cup. I say that like it's a bad thing, but in reality that is an aesthetic that I've always enjoyed and have felt home around. So combine that with the winding corners and blistering straights of an anti-grav racer, and you got a recipe for something that I very much enjoy. Does this love letter to the PS1 classics hold a candle to its spiritual predecessor, or does it crash and burn in the pulsing neon lights? I hope to answer both of these questions, but I should probably introduce myself. I'm the Phantom Merchant Jay Collins, and I'd like to welcome you to my shop. BNG has all the markings of a Wipeout-inspired racer, from the UI design to the look of the ships to the selection of music on display, but most importantly, the gameplay. Unlike games such as Redout, F-Zero, and Fast RMX, BNG relies less on over-the-top, white-knuckle, high-speed sprints, and instead leans into a considerably more technical approach to racing. Using the triggers on your gamepad, should you choose to use one, you have bumpers on your ship serving as a brake for one half of the ship or the other, allowing turns to be easier once you get the hang of it. As you can tell from some of the footage, it took me a while to get the hang of it, and I'd be lying if I said I was an expert. Yes, cornering is a big aspect of BNG, much like its inspiration, and serves as an appealing feature to fans of a more technical racing style. That isn't to say there isn't a fair share of fast moments, but they are few and far between compared to the level of cornering. On a personal level, I absolutely adore this approach. Don't get me wrong, I love high-octane 700 miles an hour speeds in my A-Grav games as much as the next guy, but there is something genuinely fresh about taking a subgenre often associated with blinding speeds, often as a detractor, and bringing it down to a more grounded level. Combine this with the overall corporate future aesthetic, and it really feels like BNG's Racing League could be what Formula 1 is like in, say, 400 years from now. Now, one obvious and to some negative inspiration this game clearly takes from the old PS1 Wipeout games is the graphical fidelity. On a technical level, this game looks like a late-era PS2 game. The textures are blocky, the lighting is basic, and the backgrounds aren't up to much. And weirdly, I friggin' love it. Now, I understand taking my personal opinion out of this, if you're looking for a graphical feast for the eyes, you won't find it here. However, if you're somebody who grew up with Wipeout, or in my case just grew up with this era in gaming in general, then this is nostalgic as all hell, and it's in a way that doesn't feel lazy. Sometimes when games look bad, especially indie games, people try to justify it saying that it's retro, when in reality, they just didn't have the skill, desire, resources, or a combination of the three to make it look nice. However, this feels like a PS1 game, only one with native widescreen support and modern draw distance, put into a modern-day PC classic. I like this a lot. It feels like a period piece of sorts, taking a lot of respect, homage, and love for one of the subgenre's founding fathers and bringing it to the modern day. On a related note, this game also clearly takes inspiration from Wipeout in the soundtrack, head-bopping electronic dance music that is very reminiscent of mid-90s to early 2000s rave culture. As somebody who often carries secondhand nostalgia for that type of scene, I love it a lot. My only regret is that I don't feel comfortable showing you any of the tracks because YouTube's copyright system is so finicky that I'm already rolling the dice just by showing video game footage, and I don't want to push it any further. That being said, the subgenre of anti-grav racers is often characterized by pretty banging OSTs, and BNG is no exception. I could easily see myself listening to this when I get up in the morning to pump myself up or when I'm on the bus. Now, all these aspects are just at a glance. How about we give a more thorough breakdown, shall we? brief note before I continue, I couldn't find any multiplayer games, but I think that has more to do with me not having any friends and this not being a matchmaking focused game. So I won't be able to give you a rundown of how this game plays online. All the footage I will be showing will be from the single player. Speaking of, if you choose to do the campaign, you can do a practice race, which gets you used to the basic controls of the game with an unlimited amount of laps. Beyond that, you have a series of leagues, each with their own races that have a number of different categories and race styles, such as your standard race, time trial, knockout, eliminator, and survival. Race and time trials basically speak for themselves, if you've ever played any racing game before, that is. Knockout is like a normal race, but at the end of each lap, the racer in last place is eliminated. Survival is an endless solo race where you can't slow down and have to last as long as you can, with the race getting faster every few seconds. And eliminator is basically a combat race where the person who does the most damage to their opponent wins. And this will all culminate in a league tournament. The league tournament has you take part in 3 races on the 3 tracks that were used throughout the league, and whoever has the most points by the end of their race wins. As mentioned in the previous section, speed is not the main factor here in BNG, as technical ability and track knowledge reign supreme. In BNG, the winner isn't the fastest racer, it's the racer who messes up the least. Early in the game, this is easy because the AI messes up just as much as you do, leaving you with enough wiggle room to occasionally run into a few walls and screw up a few corners. As the AI improves, however, you have much less leniency, and unless you want to live in the midfield, you have to know the tracks. There is a serious skill ceiling to this game, as you have to know your ship, your controls, the track, and even yourself to be able to stand at the top of the podium and rack up all those gold medals. I'm far from the expert at this game, but I could easily see myself sitting down to try and learn the ins and outs of a game like this, as I myself am a big fan of technical games such as this. I suppose, however, that leads into my biggest complaint, and this is a complaint I have with Wipeout as well. I absolutely hate the fact that there are weapons in this game. Missiles, cannons, plasma balls, mines, whatever. I absolutely cannot stand that stuff. When I play a racing game, I like feeling like every aspect of whether or not I win or lose is in my control. You could argue that I just need to get good, but that is a wall that I have a hard time climbing, not because I can't, but because I just don't want to. A game where technique, form, and overall pure racing prowess is heavily featured shouldn't have missiles flying everywhere, disrupting a great corner attempt, or hitting the straights. While I do hate that you can't shut off the weapons settings in the campaign, it is good that you can at least do so within a custom race, so that's something. I don't know, I understand that these would appeal to some people, and in many ways it gives a race a more dangerous feeling to them, but I've never been a fan of that kind of nonsense. It's actually one of the reasons why I don't like Mario Kart, because unless I'm having a few beers with my friends as I play it, I don't enjoy it that much because I don't like being disrupted during a race by something out of my control. Call me a snob, but I love my racing to be 100% pure. However, that's really my only major complaint with this game. The racing feels great. I could easily see myself having a lot of fun with my friends playing it. The fact that it has a decent modding support really makes it even better, and I honestly could see this game having a great future on the Steam Deck if it is any good. Something about passing the time on the bus with a race or two sure does sound nice. So, I should probably give my final thoughts. Despite many of my reservations, I honestly think that this game is absolutely fantastic. If you're a fan of Wipeout, or if you're a fan of the anti-gravity racer subgenre in general, I would definitely suggest going out and getting it. It's on Steam, and it's usually very, very cheap. It goes on sale very often. Would highly suggest picking this up. As for me, this is going to be my last video for the rest of the year because I need to focus on stuff for the holidays. I need to focus on some stuff at the flea market, so I'm going to be focusing primarily on that kind of thing. I'd also like to give a big shout out to my friend Rain Resner, who actually allowed me to use the music that you're listening to in this video. This is actually from the album The Black Apple. Would highly suggest getting it. I'm going to link to his Bandcamp, his Twitter, and his YouTube channel in the description below. As for me, I'm the Phantom Merchant, Jay Collins, and I hope to see you again. Goodbye.